Welcome, everybody, to our Halloween Wednesday edition of Two Guys and a Mic. I'm one of your hosts, Ron Pierce, better known as RP.
And I'm your other host, Big Sean. I hope everyone is doing well out there.
Yeah, this is, I said Halloween because by the time we do our Football Sunday edition of the show, it'll already be November. So we want to give those folks who have some love and enjoy Halloween. We want to give y'all some love. Happy Halloween. I don't really do Halloween all like that. I love scary movies, but I don't really do the Halloween dress up mask and all that stuff. What about you, Sean?
No, man, I haven't put on a costume since I was maybe 16
Yeah,
or 17. The
I
last time
think I
I
was like
dressed up,
18.
I was Pete Rose, of all people. I was Pete Rose.
Look, that's keeping it sports. That'll tell you
No,
what.
I had
Look,
I had the Cincinnati Red starter jacket. I had the hat, and what I did was I put like stuff on my hat that was kind of like had like a gambling thing to it and stuff like that. So it was kind of like on a fly. I had to make up something. So I was like,
you should have had a batting list on the back of a notepad, and under the next sheet
right.
had the whole like a betting slip or something.
Yeah, but Halloween is cool, man. I always thought that Halloween was just for kids, but it's kind of turned into more of a thing for adults now. So
Yeah, it's like for the big kids too. I mean, I'm not big, like I say, I'm not big on getting all dressed up. I know people who do it. I always laugh when
yeah,
people
they
do
love
it,
it.
especially when they do it well. Like,
Right.
some people do it really well. I'm like, wow, I would have never thought that, or that costume looks really good. I
Right.
just I'm not a big put on a costume type of guy. Not like that, not for a party and not all that kind of stuff. And, now with, I have kids and I've always gotten into it with them. But that's about it. Like outside of the kid aspect of it, I'm cool. So
Right. And they don't even really trick or treat like they used to either, man. I
no,
saw they do it during daylight. I see parents driving them from house to house. Like,
listen,
man, we used to go out at like soon as sundown, we'll be out to like 10:30.
you better do it that way nowadays, man. With all this supposed child trafficking
Yeah.
and all that stuff, man, I can't leave my kids outside with
Yeah.
another group of kids like to
But you remember though, but like back in the 80s, that was big too. Stuff kind of like cycles. Remember how like at the end of
Sure.
with our cartoons, they would have little tips on how to avoid getting kidnapped with the secret
Yeah,
password, all of that. So it's really nothing new. It's just that,
I
you
say
know,
that all the time, Sean. I say that all the time. Like, I don't think it's quote unquote more dangerous. I just think it's more we're more
on the
aware.
open.
Yeah.
Right.
So
And
I
then
don't
the
think
TV shows to touch on it too. You remember that famous episode of Different Strokes
we
with
don't
Arnold?
have that no more though, dog. We don't
Yeah,
have after school specials and
right.
where your big shows like you just said, like a Different Strokes or Facts of Life that we used to watch where that happened to the kids and the kids actually get an opportunity to watch that, see that happen to somebody they quote unquote know. Good
Right. If you
Times was
did that
another one.
now, they say it's too strong. They say it's too much
Yeah.
for them. They shouldn't
But
be watching
look,
stuff
Good
like that.
Times
But
used to do it. It was a bunch of episodes of Good Times that was like gang related and hood related or whatever like that. So
right, right.
you know, it's a different time, but I think that's another issue that we have now. It's a little bit softer nowadays.
True. Very true.
Well, just transitioning real quick. I guess we should talk about sports. um,
Hey,
so this has actually been kind of a busy week in Cleveland. You wouldn't think so with us having won the game on Sunday. It was a really good game, an exciting game. Uh, Maybe a game that didn't have to be what it was, but it was what it was, and we showed up and we were able to pull it out. And in general, it should have been kind of a just a regular buzz week. Like, yeah, we're 5-2. We're going into the next week. Everything should be kind of cool, right? Not quite. Cleveland is never that way. We're never that type of a football team. We can't do things simple. Has to be multifaceted and layered and extra and all that stuff for no reason. So as everybody has figured out by now, Odell Beckham Jr. Is out for the season. He has an ACL tear in his left knee. Godspeed to the homie. Hope he gets back well. Hope he gets back soon. But for now, that basically X's his abilities and everything else, his presence out of our offense and off of the team. So there's been this, I mean, from the second this dude walked off the field, there's been this atmosphere of Baker's better without him type of thing that was kind of spreading around. It spread fast. That shit spread like a California wildfire.
During the game.
During the game, not even cats didn't even wait during the game. And I know in general we start out the show talking about our keys for next week, but I gotta address this because I kind of got frustrated with some guys. I mean, I got beat up most of the week. I got beat up by guys that thought I was, too easy on Baker for him playing pretty poorly or mediocre most of the season and then having a real good game. Cats coming after me saying, I can't believe you're okay with him having a good game against the Bengals. I got guys telling me, oh, don't believe in him so much yet. I mean, it's been cats been coming at my neck. And I think it's something that needs to be addressed. I also was in a lot of text threads that were like, they need to trade OBJ because Baker's better without him. But I see an issue with that too. So we're going to dive into that first. We're going to get into that first because I want to address it and I want to give my full attention to it. But I ain't talking about it again. Same thing we did with the LeBron versus Mike thing. Once I talk about this, I'm not talking about it again on this show because I think it's stupid. Not that people don't have a good angle, but I just think it's premature. I think it's unnecessary at this particular point. So let's get into it. Is Baker Mayfield better without Odell Beckham Jr.? Sean, I'm gonna let you start, and I'm gonna wrap up some things you get done.
In my opinion, no, you're never better off when you're taking a weapon of that caliber off the field. And I wonder if this goes on in other places that has high profile athletes like that. Because I've never heard the narrative anywhere that they're like a team is better off without a star player, unless I guess maybe like in basketball, when you got maybe too many guys that hog the ball or whatnot, maybe there's no chemistry. They're, similar maybe like James Harden and Westbrook. So I guess, maybe that conversation goes on in other places. But no, I just think it was a thing where Baker just felt he needed to make Odell happy. And by doing so, he just wasn't reading the field. That's just kind of what I think that was going on. I don't know that for sure because the book is still out. We got to see what happens in these coming weeks. If Baker just may have just gotten into a rhythm finally and had a good game. Maybe had nothing to do with Odell being off the field. So let's see what happens against the Raiders. Now Baker could come out against the Raiders and stink it up because now defenses are going to plan for them not having OBJ. So now the offense has to adjust to the defense adjusting to them not having Beckham on the field. So I think everybody wants to jump to a conclusion immediately. Everybody has to pick a side. So not everybody that's been anti-Baker, they still don't want to give him credit and be like, well, it's just against the Bengals, blah, 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 blah. Then you have the anti-OBJ people in Cleveland too that's been wanting to get rid of him. Now that
absolutely correct.
Him, you see how much better we are without him. We need to get rid of him. And what I see from his teammates is nothing but love. And like even Stefanski came out and said that he's sick, that he's not in the building, that he's not out there, with the team. So I think we just need to take a wait and see attitude. And at the end of the day, It's about winning football games, period. And we need to stop, all this factionalism. I'm anti-Baker, I'm with Baker, I'm whatever. I'm pro Cleveland Browns, period. I don't care who's out there. Man, they could have Kermit the Frog out there at quarterback and Bugs Bunny at wide receiver. If you get me a Super Bowl, I don't care.
There have been years where Kermit the Frog might have been the best player on this team.
Exactly. Exactly. Man, but I'm pro Cleveland Browns. Whoever's donning that orange helmet, that brown jersey, I support as long as they're giving their full effort, towards the team. And I'm rooting for everybody that has that helmet on.
Yeah.
So that's how I feel about the situation.
Okay. And listen, I'm 100 on that, bro. I've always been a Browns fan. Believe it or not, as much angst as I felt for every name that was ever on that quarterback jersey, guess what I did? I might have known those guys stunk, but I certainly went into those games like, I hope this dude proves me wrong. I hope this dude shows me different than what I already feel about them, because I'm a Browns fan. This helmet, I remember when the logo was the Chucky helmet, with the single 2-bar joints. Back in the day, I was rocking it back then. We've been doing this. Me and you, we've gone through 400 or 500 players on this team.
Pretty much.
And it didn't matter. We were showing up every year. The both of us, you and I, have been season ticket holders for multiple years at that stadium, at the newer stadium. Whether they were good or bad, it didn't matter to us. We were fans, and we are fans. So I thoroughly agree. I'm going to root for the Browns no matter who is on that team, no matter who the coach is, hell, I rooted for Pat Shermer. Can you believe that?
Right.
I knew he was a bum, but I still was like, man, I hope the dude proves me wrong.
Of course.
Nope, he didn't. But the Browns,
it's almost like some people want a certain person to fail just so they can be right. So like they don't want Baker to have a good game just so they can be right. I hate that.
I almost think that's where we are, but I think that's the era, the new atmosphere that we exist in. This whole I gotta be right, and if I'm right, that automatically makes you wrong. Like you don't have an angle type thing,
right?
Which I think is a BS. But kind of digging into this situation this question that I've presented: is Baker better without Odell Beckham Jr.? So I'm gonna give you some of the facts, some of the things that people have. I'm gonna call them facts. Some of the things that people have said to me over the last couple of days. Baker's QBR is much better with OBJ off the field than it is with him on the field. He spreads the ball around better. He goes through his progressions like he's supposed to. And I ain't just talking about people that I know. I'm talking about even on some of the ESPN shows,
right?
Fox. I've seen it everywhere. I've listened to other podcasts. Guys were same stuff. He gets through his progressions better, as I just said. His relationship with Juice and Higgins and Njoku is better than his relationship with OBJ. And if Baker is going to be the franchise player, then it's probably in the team's best interest to get rid of OBJ. So I'm going to go into actual facts and to actual stats, because this is a stat type of environment. And I'm going to tell you something that I said to one of my friends. Again, Cat's been coming at me for, the bulk of this week. He said that the majority of Baker's passes to OBJ have probably resulted in the majority of Baker's interceptions. That could probably be true on paper, but if you go back and look at those picks, and I'm going to get into that a little bit in a minute. If you go back and look at those actual picks, stats. Jay-Z has a great and memorable lyric in one bar in one of his songs. Men lie, women lie, numbers don't. Numbers don't lie, but numbers don't always tell you the whole truth. You have
That's
to
true.
watch what's happening because I can get a number to say whatever I want it to say.
Yeah, numbers don't tell a story.
Yeah, it don't tell
Numbers
you.
only deal in absolutes. Only deals in absolutes, does not tell the story
Yeah,
about.
listen, if I got a triple double by throwing the ball at the wrong basket, but all you see is me having a triple double, that's whack. That's whack. So I'm gonna give you some factual numbers. Baker's QBR does go up when OBJ is off the field. He goes somewhere closer to 70. I think it's 72 or 73 when OBJ is on the field. When he's off the field, it's closer to like 90, 95, between 90 and 95, which is significantly different. But the truth is, to be honest with you, we're talking about 2 or 3 passes completed. We're talking about maybe a first down, maybe a touchdown. But that doesn't necessarily mean because OBJ wasn't on the field, that made it easier for him. And that's just something I want to point out. He does move the ball better. The team moves the ball better. He does seem to go through his progressions a little bit better. And I'll even go into the relationship thing. We all know that him and Jarvis have a great on the field relationship. He throws to Jarvis often, and Jarvis is usually his safety valve, more so than his tight ends, which I would prefer he goes to his tight ends or his running backs as a safety valve, but he goes to Juice a lot. But he also goes to Rashard. Rashard is another safety valve for him. He has a great relationship. He's targeted Rashard Higgins 12 times this season. Rashard has 11 catches and 3 touchdowns versus OBJ's 43 targets, 23 touchdowns and 23 receptions and 3 touchdowns. So if you look at those numbers, what would you say? Oh, he's got a better relationship because basically if he threw to Higgins 43 times, Higgins will have 43 catches. You know what I mean? Like that's what people would say. That doesn't mean that. We've all watched football. Based on these particular numbers, for every 10 catches, for every 11 catches, this dude's going to get 2 touchdowns. You think that's going to hold up over a whole season?
Exactly.
Rashard Higgins? Higgins.
Especially now, Rashard's going to get more attention now.
He's going to get
now that he's the number 2 receiver.
Now, the thing that people keep leaving out is what you just basically said, and that's why I said it the way I said it. Now with OBJ out, guess what? Those mismatches that we used to have, we don't have no more, especially without Chubb on the field. So now you're going to get teams that's going to start to load the box in. And we're talking about regular basic teams. We haven't even gotten to the really good teams like Tennessee, the Ravens, and the Steelers that we still have on our schedule. I honestly think that the Browns are a playoff team or could be a playoff team. So even if we get through that gauntlet of guys, you know what's going to end up happening when we get to the playoffs. Guys are going to be like, we don't have to roll that safety over the top towards OBJ's side. They're going to send it. Who's your next best? Here are the Browns' best 4 players. Tell me if I'm right. Myles Garrett, Odell Beckham Jr., Nick Chubb, and Jarvis Landry. Those are our 4. Who?
I agree.
Yeah, those are. I thought you said somebody else's name. So those are our 4 best players individually on the team. Not in any particular order, but those are the best 4 players on the team. 2 of those guys are gone. One of those guys is on defense. Who the hell do you think they're going to double team now? So that puts the pressure on Rashard. That puts the pressure on DPJ, Donovan Peoples-Jones. My other guy ain't back from injury quite yet, is he? Cordero Hodge, is he?
Yeah, he's supposed to come off the IR this week.
Okay, so he's supposed to come back.
He's supposed to play.
Yeah, but you're talking about Cordero Hodge, Rashard Higgins, David Njoku is another guy that could cause an issue, but Njoku has to be focused on the game.
Right.
He can't be concerned about whether he's going to be here or not and all that stuff that he's concerned with right now. And rightfully so. I mean, as a professional, if you want to be on another team, you don't think you're getting opportunities, but this is your chance to maybe up your trade value, sir.
Right. Showcase yourself.
Showcase yourself. Show that you're worth
Exactly.
it to the team or worth it to another team. Maybe another team will call to see if you're still available. So we have to get that out of these guys. And if we don't get that out of these guys, especially within the next, say, 3 to 4 weeks, because Chubb won't be back. So they loading the box up.
Right. Now, they are saying that Chubb may be back after the bye week.
Here's what I heard, and I've heard similar things to what you heard, but what I heard specifically from Stefanski was when he comes back, it'll be after the bye week. Duh, he was coming back after the bye week anyway. So I think that was coach speak a little bit.
I got you.
It doesn't necessarily mean I like it though, because it doesn't tip their hand one way or the other.
Yeah, so that's a good way to put it.
But I like I'm saying, I think it would be premature to us, because if I'm them, I'm not putting that dude back in there the game after the bye week either. If I'm them.
If he's good to go, so that'd be because by that time he would have been out 4 weeks. When did he get hurt? The Indianapolis? Yeah, so
he got hurt against Dallas.
Okay.
So this is going into his 4th week. We have a bye next week, correct?
Yeah.
And then the game after that. So that's been 4, 5. That'll be week 6. I would rather have him sit out, simply because, again, just because he showed up, that actually gives you one more cat in the hole. So you're going to go from, say 6 cats in the hole right now in the box. Chubb comes back, you're probably going to get 7 in the box, because you can't, they're not so concerned. Who's stretching the field, bro?
Right.
They ain't concerned about nobody stretching the field, which is where OBJ's value really is. While everybody's assuming, oh, he's just a distraction. Yeah, he's a goddamn distraction. He's a guy that everybody has to pay attention to. You got to keep watching that dude, because if not, listen, Ray Allen wasn't the guy who was going to dunk on you towards the end of his career. Ray Allen was not the guy who was going to give you the shake and bake and take you to the rack like he did at the end of his career. But guess what you better not do? Forget where the hell Ray Allen is on the court. It's the same thing with OBJ. You cannot forget where that dude is on the floor. I mean, on the field, rather. You have to pay him some attention. So when you drop back and you got that safety rolling over there, and now you got 15 yards of space for no reason over here, just because that guy's on the field, stop telling me that this dude is better without that type of thing. We're getting ready to find out how much better Baker is, because now you're starting to get into guys that understand that this team ain't just bad. You know, it used to be a time we were just bad. And They didn't care who we put out there. They didn't care how we played. They didn't care who the coach was. Now, teams are having to prepare for us. And we're getting ready to see how good Baker can be. How good can Baker be? You want to ask me? I honestly don't know. And I'm echoing the sentiment that my partner said on Sunday. I don't know which Baker going to show up from week to week. I still don't. He did this, not taking anything away from the Bengals, not taking anything away from Baker, because all of those guys get checks. And they give up 400 yards a game in the air, and they give up almost 30 yards of offense on defense. But if Baker didn't do that, we would have killed the guy.
Exactly.
We would have killed him.
Exactly.
So he did what he was supposed to do. So why can't you doff your cap to the dude? He did what he was supposed to do. I'm not saying I'm excited and buying into Baker. What I'm saying is, thank God the dude showed up and did what he should have done, and now we're 5-2. doff my cap
Exactly.
because we haven't been 5-2 after 7 games and how
And
goddamn
just
long.
imagine if we would have lost that game,
Man,
3 going into the Las Vegas game.
listen,
It would have been holy hell all week on the
I
radio.
wish we could go back to what you said on the show. If we lose this game, I think this was last Wednesday.
Yeah, last Wednesday, right?
If we, you said if we lose this game, the Sunday show is going to be nice, and that's not an understatement. That's actually a spot-on statement. If we had lost that game, everybody would be coming for Baker's neck. So when he does well, nobody wants to just say, "Hey man, you did good job," and leave it at that. Everybody has to say it was good, but listen, the dude played well. He threw 21 straight completions.
Should have been 22, but they counted the spike.
That was a spike.
Yeah.
That was just a spike. And listen, I'm fine with that because to me it was 22. I think the whole show Sunday I kept saying 22. Like I skipped over the fact that it was a spike. I didn't even look at it as an incompletion because the dude completed 22 straight passes to me. You know, just like I don't think intentional walk should be intentional. Like that shouldn't count as a walk. I meant to walk him. Right. You know what I mean? Like that shouldn't be a walk against me. But I get it. It was a spike. So that meant there was an incompletion. But I have to give the dude credit for doing what he was supposed to do. Because if he doesn't do it, then what? So if he ain't ever the guy, he ain't even a guy when he do it against a bad team. Like when Kobe scored 81 against the terrible, terrible Raptors, you know what all we remember? He scored 81. That's it. That's all we remember. When we talk about Michael Jordan scoring 63, back then it was the greatest thing ever because it was on the road in the playoffs against the Celtics. Now they're like, oh, well, all them dudes was white and slow. You know what I mean? Like they gonna take the joy out of everything, dog. They don't understand. This new age folks don't understand the freaking game. Baker Mayfield has been if you look up mediocre in the dictionary, there's a picture of Baker Mayfield right now because he's been pretty mediocre all season. Sunday, the dude was pretty extraordinary, and I'm not going to act like he wasn't. Now, I don't know that that's the same guy that's going to show up going into Sunday. However, I'm going to give him his props. I'm going to tip my cap, and I'm going to root for my team. And I'm going to tell y'all, any player on earth who is better with less talent on purpose, I don't even understand that sentence.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't even understand that. Like LeBron keeps going to look for talent, doesn't he? He keeps going to find guys that can actually play and that can actually offset the things that would make the game easier for himself.
He's probably doing it right now.
He's
right. He's somewhere trying to figure out who.
So I don't understand. Yeah, he's trying to reach out for guys that might not show back up this season. He's looking for other guys that come in and fill that spot. So I'm trying to figure out if it's okay for LeBron to be better with extra talent. How is it okay for this dude to be okay with less talent? It doesn't make sense.
I think it's just more. A lot of it's just because Odell Beckham Jr. is just a polarizing figure, and people just because he can be flamboyant at times, people just don't. Either you love him or you hate him. Kind of like, not to put him in a Floyd Mayweather category, but Floyd can be a little.
But similar, I get that.
Flamboyant and stuff like that. So no matter what Floyd does, the people who don't like Floyd,
they're gonna always have something. It's the same thing with LeBron.
Something to say.
It's the same thing with LeBron. There's people who don't like LeBron, and no matter what LeBron does, it's people who don't like Mike. No matter what Mike does, it's gonna be a critic that second guesses or undermines whatever great thing or good thing that those guys have accomplished.
It's hard, like with human nature, for like polarizing issues. Period. It's hard for people to be objective when it comes to polarizing figures and polarizing issues. You can see it now with our political situation.
Yeah.
Look like Donald Trump. Donald Trump can come out right now and hand out $3 million checks to every American, and you're gonna have people that say they're gonna find a way to detract from that.
While
And
they standing in line to get that joint cashed, by the way.
right. So I mean, just the times that we live in, and I try to ignore it as much as possible. Like I hate getting in these debates now, especially when you're not going to be logical about it, rational about the art.
I'm sorry. Use that L word you just used again, dog. I don't know what the hell it is. Say it again.
It's like logical.
Logic. I mean, damn. But everybody, you've been the biggest proponent outside of myself of this new age, new era of sports fan, the microwave, ESPN, stat field group of people that we exist in right now. We don't have a bunch of people that actually spend the time watching the games and being in the games and trying to learn the games. We just look at, oh, Aaron Rodgers had 320 yards, 4 touchdowns, but you don't realize that he had 3 straight 3-and-outs that almost cost the team the game. So yeah, his stats look great, but let's talk about what actually happened.
Yeah, what actually happened during the game. Exactly. So we're going to see. I'm taking this season one game at a time. Like I said, I'm not going to get too high with the high and not too low with the lows. Try to block out all the negative stuff as much as possible.
Black out the noise.
And go ahead and enjoy the ride as much as I possibly can, man.
And real quick, before we move on to our keys for the game, because we haven't even gotten to the keys of the game. I just had to get that off my chest because I'm sick of people.
Right.
I also would like to hear, and I'm not talking about this anymore on the show either, the folks that believe that OBJ is a distraction and that he's only out for self and that he's only concerned with his angle, blah, blah, yada, yada, and such and such. So on Sunday, Baker said he went in the locker room. They went in the locker room at halftime, and OBJ was on the trainer's table, and guys was, filtering in, just giving up love. Myles Garrett gave a shout out. Larry Ogunjobi gave a shout out. All on their Instagram. You can go check it out if you think I'm bullshitting. They all gave this dude a shout out. Of course, Juice did, but they all gave this dude a shout out. Why, if he's such a bad teammate? Number one. Number two, Baker and Donovan Peoples-Jones both said the dude looked me squarely in the face and told me to go out there and be great. Both of them said the exact same thing. Now, why would he tell another wide receiver to go out there and be great if he wasn't about the team? Why would he tell his quarterback, who he don't get along with, to go out there and be great if there was an issue there?
And bigger than that, when Baker threw that interception, if he was all about himself, he wouldn't have tried to make that tackle.
He wouldn't have tried to make the tackle.
I was wondering why he did a kamikaze and jumped into the pile.
Well,
I don't know what.
You know what? When I went back and I looked at the because I was thinking the same thing. I was with pretty much everybody else. It looked like, why were you trying to jump at these guys? Because it made no sense. But they showed a behind, so coming from the angle from where the Browns were going. So the pick is going this the pass is coming this way. The pick is going to go back towards this way. So I'm looking at it from behind. And you can see he was chasing the play down. And as he was going to make a tackle, he tried to plant his leg to make a tackle. And his leg buckled. And when it buckled, he jumped like, oh.
Oh, okay.
So it was kind of like a jump, like, oh, what was that? Like I can't keep my foot like this no more. And he ended up kind of toppling over. Keyshawn Johnson said something similar, like he wasn't sure, what was going on. He couldn't figure out where the injury particularly happened, but maybe Keyshawn didn't see that view, but he did have a key point. Maybe he hurt that thing. Maybe it was partially torn anyway. Maybe he was just playing through it and trying to trying to play through it and ended up tearing it. I mean, we'll never know 100%, but Baker is a class guy. He keeps showing me that he's a little classier than people give him credit for. He wouldn't even address that. I was watching his interview today. They were asking him, do they think he's a better quarterback without OBJ? He flat out said, "I'm not answering that. That's just disrespectful. I'm not about to do that with y'all." And he moved on to the next question. So that's how simple y'all sound saying that kind of stuff. Baker won't even address it, and I know that ain't gonna dissuade most people. they still gonna be like, "Well, he ain't want to say nothing because he knows the truth." The truth is, we all understand what it is. You can't be. Look, James Worthy would never say he was better without Magic. Scottie Pippen would never say he was better without Mike. Mike probably wouldn't say he was better without Scottie. He's actually said he wasn't. He said he needed Scottie. If LeBron said he could have won a championship in Cleveland without Kyrie or vice versa, they both lying. They both are lying. So you need that other guy. I don't understand why people think we don't need that other guy. But I got that. I think I got that off my chest.
Yes, you did. I think you got it all the way off your chest.
I was irritated. It's crazy because I anticipated Sean to be the most irritated person on this show. We're 13 episodes in, and I've been the most irritated person on this show.
Man, you know what? And not to get all off on a tangent, I just changed my view on a whole lot of things, man. And the thing is, like, even in life, like, some things just ain't worth getting irritated over no more.
You know what?
You know what I'm saying? Now, this is not to say
I don't disagree.
This is not to say I don't have bad days where I'm not irritated. No, I get very irritated. It's just that now when I feel myself going there, I take a step back, breathe. Like, is it worth the argument? Is it worth getting upset about? And if I deem it no, I kind of just fall back on it.
I agree with you, and I've been there for a while. Actually, I don't get as mad as I could have, or that I used to get. I don't get mad. I don't get as mad as I could have gotten, and I don't get as mad as I used to get. I'm pretty mellow, but there's certain things that get under my craw, and I'm just like, come on, man. So I have to find a way to let it out in a more productive way. You can't always lash out, you can't always yell. And I try to really put my emotions in a well-concised sentence structure, et cetera, which is tougher than just yelling and screaming and calling people stupid, which is what you kind of want to do. But I digress, folks. I'm a college-educated veteran, and I should probably handle myself in a much better way. So I've tried to grow the hell up and respond in a like way. So, all right, I think we're done with the rant. I had to get that rant off. I needed to get that rant off. I hope all of those people who had something to say or questions that, about the thing. No, I haven't. I'm not going to not criticize Baker. I've always criticized Baker, and I'm not 100% sure which Baker we're going to see on Sunday, especially after being
criticized when it's time to criticize, but we give
when
praise.
It's time. We're not gonna unequivocally criticize cats like just because. We try not to do that. We try to be fair. Baker hasn't been consistent this year, and now he may have lost a little bit of his chip as we move into the keys for this Las Vegas Raiders game. I'm gonna ask Sean this because I've been talking for about seems like 2 or 3 hours. Sean, as we move into this game, Baker has been named AFC Player of the Week.
All right.
Do you think pieces and parts, because you've alluded to this before, that you believe that Baker has to play with a chip on his shoulder? Do you think he's losing an edge with being named the AFC Player of the Week? And then going
not at all. Not at all, because there's enough people still detracting from him this week saying, like you said it earlier, that it was just against Cincinnati. It's a bad defense. You're playing better without OBJ, blah, 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 blah. Still a lot of negativity. And I think he knows there's work still to be done. So no. I think he's still has that chip on his shoulder, and I think he'll show up this week.
Okay. Go into your keys of the game, bro.
Okay. The Raiders, I was trying to look up and see where the Raiders were ranked defensively. And I should have had this all together, but I didn't. But I know that they're one of the worst. They might be like right next to Cincinnati as far as one of the worst defenses in the league. So that's
Their pass
definitely a plus.
defense. Their pass defense isn't that great. Their run defense isn't. I think their run defense is worse than their pass defense. If
Right.
that makes any sense.
Right. So, with that being said, I think it's a game where to come out, be aggressive, attack, still focus on the run game. But if you see holes in that defensive secondary, attack. We still have weapons. Like these tight ends, like Brian, are starting to show up.
Yeah.
He looks really good.
Yeah.
Still got Jarvis. Higgins looks good. Kareem Hunt. So that's definitely an advantage to us. Now, on the flip side, the thing that worries me on the other end, of course, is our defense and their tight end, Darren Waller, who's one of the best tight ends.
Monster.
The Browns haven't been able to really guard a tight end since I don't know
ever.
So that part of it worries me. But my keys are one, I need Baker to have another game like he had against Cincinnati. I just want to see that confident Baker. I think we're going to need a bigger game out of Kareem Hunt. Kareem Hunt has kind of he's done okay, hasn't had that really breakout performance yet. And I think he's due. For one. So I want to see that from Kareem. And then the other thing I want to see somebody else on that defensive line step up and help Myles Garrett. I do see Vernon flash at times, but they're not getting there. I want to see someone else take that pressure off of Myles Garrett so they can't sit there and triple team him all game. So that's kind of what I'm looking for going into Sunday's matchup against the damn Raiders.
Okay. Again, we think too much alike at times because you kind of hit on pretty much all of my expectations of whatever we need to do going into this game. So I think that one of the keys is, since we've just talked about it so much, the relationships that Baker Mayfield has with his receivers is going to be key this week. So he's going to have a lot of Rashard Higgins. He's going to have a lot of Donovan Peoples-Jones. He's going to have a lot of Jarvis Landry. He's going to have a lot of his guys that he's used to having on the field and guys that he's used to having a solid on-the-field relationship with, including David Njoku. They'll be on the field a lot. I really, honestly, touching on the tight end aspect of that, I think he's developing a pretty solid relationship with Harrison Bryant. I think that's starting to really gel, and I like what I see in Harrison Bryant on and off the ball. Like, this kid is really good. I think I hope he's going to be around for a while. I mean, this dude is a rookie, and you could just see the ability in him just watching him. So to watch him mature and learn how to really move on a football field, it's going to be interesting. We haven't had a player like that in a long time. Damn sure not in a tight end role. So it'll be interesting to watch him develop as a player as we continue to go. So I think our relationships, or the relationships rather, between the quarterback Baker Mayfield and our receivers will need to be exploited and utilized in this particular game. As I mentioned, their defensive backfield they're not bad. from a pass standpoint. But I think because the focal point will be trying to prove if Baker can beat them with their arm again,
Right.
because he's been inconsistent, we'll probably get a lot of one-on-ones or a lot of zones that he can exploit and it would be great if he can. I want to see him be able to exploit different matchups. Secondly, you touched on this, but the run game. Kareem has to be the guy again. He ran really, really well last week. Not superiorly, but he ran well. He was enough of a distraction that it kept the Bengals at bay. The Raiders defense gives up close to 4.5 yards per carry. So you would like to see Kareem be able to exploit some of that. I think he will. I know he's been a little bit injured, but he ran really hard last week. It ain't going to show up in the stats, but he ran really hard last week.
Right.
I could see a little more energy in him than I saw in the game against the Steelers. He just looked a little more energized. And I think, just like anything else, more repetitions. So he's getting more carries, more touches, stuff like that. I think he'll just get better as those repetitions and as those touches accumulate. So,
Right.
but I need him to show up this week. And then defensively, Derek Carr is very, very inconsistent. He's a lot like Baker. He'll have a really good game, or honestly, he'll have 2 good games, 3 good games. I've spent the last 2.5 years, I've said this a few times, in Vegas. So I've watched a lot of Raiders games over the last 2.5 years. And this dude will have 2 or 3 really, really good games and legitimately fall off a cliff. Like, he's super inconsistent.
Right. I agree with you 100%.
The problem is, for us, our defensive backfield. Our defensive backfield stinks. And not always because we just stink in terms of talent. I think our scheme isn't good enough all the time. Again, to echo what you were saying, we're a one-man wrecking crew right now up front. It's all Myles Garrett or nobody gets nowhere near the quarterback. And that has to change, and it needs to change, and we need to start trying to figure out a way to change it if we can.
And one thing they did do last week, they brought a couple of corner blitzes. I think Kevin Johnson, did he get 2 sacks? I know he had
1 sack for sure.
I think there was another one where they got close. It might have been Ronnie Harrison that got the other one.
I know a couple of. You're right.
Yeah, I knew it was a couple of defensive backs. So I like those wrinkles that they're bringing. It used to be back in the day. Remember the Browns would bring a safety blitz from Akron, and the safety would never get there because he's coming from too far.
Yeah, by the time he got there, there was an open space in the defensive backfield, and that meant a touchdown.
Exactly. But they seem to be doing a little bit smart, being a little bit smarter with that. Because I don't want to be too hard on Joe Woods. Like, I don't like the scheme that he's running, but he's also running a scheme based on the personnel that he has.
No,
so I'm just keep that into account too.
I haven't killed him yet.
Right. And the defense has kept us in games. They made some timely turnovers. They get at least one or two a game that puts us in a good position to score. So
if Myles can open up the script club, we are, per usual, we're in business. Because even if you don't get the coverage on the sack, on the fumble, you still are probably about 8 to 10 yards behind the line of scrimmage.
Exactly.
In general, averagely. So, if Myles can be Myles on 3 or 4 plays and really disrupt, and he's Myles on every play, but really get back there and really disrupt on 4 to 5 plays, which is what he's averaging about right now, because he's had a couple sacks per game. I think he's on a 6-game sack, 6 games in a row with a sack.
7.
7, is it 7 now?
Yeah,
Okay,
because he's had at least 1 sack every game, right?
my bad. So he's got 7 straight sacks, 7 sacks in 7 straight games. Not to mention him opening the script club. So he's got the 4 strip sacks. And you're right, Olivier Vernon is generally in the backfield a lot. Here's the difference between what Myles Garrett is at, what is Myles, like 24? This
Something
is
like
the difference
that.
between Myles Garrett and Olivier Vernon, who's like 29, 30. At 29, 30, this dude can't handle 2 guys. So when there's a chip on Olivier Vernon, he ain't getting to that guy. Like he's just done. Whereas this dude taking on 2, 3, 4 guys, I literally heard I can't remember who was calling the game, but I literally heard them call Myles Garrett. They're like, he looks like the second coming of Bruce Smith.
Yeah,
First of all, do you know how premature that statement is? And secondly, do you know how huge that statement is?
Right.
I mean, to say this, anybody, anywhere, it's like Bruce Smith, and it's not actually Bruce Smith, it's crazy.
You know what else is crazy though? Like already Myles Garrett is something like 4th all time on the Browns sack list.
Well,
Like he just passed. Who did he just pass? He just passed Carl Harrison. His big dad. Right.
Big
the next up is Rob Burnett.
Oh, my man, Big Rob.
Right. So they said probably at this pace by sometime next year, he'll be the all-time leading sack leader in Browns history.
He'll be ahead of MVP. He'll be ahead of Michael Dean. Now,
I don't know if that's an indictment on the lack of playmakers he's had in the past.
I think it's an indictment on a lot of things. One of the things that I said about Myles Garrett when we drafted him was, when you look at those particular, it's certain things, it's a lot of times you can't let the numbers fool you. It's a lot of times you can't let the numbers fool you. Just because a guy runs a 4.2 don't mean he's going to be a great wide receiver.
Ronaldo,
yeah, he's got speed, but if you don't know how to utilize the speed in the pass game, like if you don't have a wide receivers coach who can develop this dude's, routes and stuff, or if you don't have an offense that's patient enough. Remember Santonio Holmes? I kept telling my boy, he was in the show a couple weeks ago, Mark Stover. Mark Stover hated Santonio Holmes for the first a year and a half of that dude's career. And I kept saying, Santonio is a flyer. Y'all are trying to teach him how to run a route, but he's in a great spot. He's got a good quarterback and a good wide receiver in Hines Ward who knows how to run routes. Just leave him alone, and he's going to become what y'all need him to. What did he go on to do? Catch probably one of the best passes. Maybe one of the best passes I've ever seen caught in the Super Bowl. Not because it was a great pass. It was a greater catch.
Yep.
It was a greater catch. So you sometimes get these fast guys that come out. So what did you're fast? So what did you? But Myles Garrett, the measurables on this guy were so ridiculous. You know what I said? I said, man, you got to take a shot at this guy because he might be legitimately once in a lifetime. So when is the last time we took a shot at the once in a lifetime guy? We generally don't.
We generally don't do that.
We generally will just skip past that like, oh, well, we needed a more sound guy. What's more sound than a dude on the edge who's 6'4", 6'5", 270, and can run 4.5.
Exactly.
And can jump 46 inches. What? Man, if you don't draft that dude, we're not sure about his motor. Who cares about his? Listen, I'll replace his motor. You can't. That's a no-brainer right there. It's like saying,
those measurables you can't coach. You just born with that.
You can't coach that.
I don't think you're just born with it, but that comes with hard work too. One thing I wanted to point out, we talked about the Raiders defense earlier. So the Raiders defense is ranked 26th in the NFL. Here's the crazy thing, right? There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There are 11 teams that have a worse defense than the Browns, which I thought was impossible. I'm like, how is that even? For what we've seen, what we've watched the first 7 weeks, how is that remotely possible to have a worse defense?
But here's the thing. You know what ends up happening? You know what ends up happening? We take those middle games where we went on that 4-game win streak, you take the guesswork out of it because you know they're going to pass, right? So you just kind of dial up the blitz, and we were playing kind of bad teams. So that stops their run, which means that you ain't getting no run yardage from that point because we're up so big. We were getting a lot of turnovers back then. At that time, going into the Steelers game, we had 12 turnovers, which led to NFL. So it's easy. Again, this is another reason why stats don't always tell the entire story. Who did you play? How did you play? And what happened in those games?
And when you look at it, so like the Browns are averaging, giving up 288 passing yards a game and only 92. When you put that in perspective, that doesn't sound all that bad in today's NFL.
No.
But I thought it was a whole lot worse, as opposed to like the worst defense in the league is Seattle. Seattle's giving up 368 yards per game and 110 on the ground.
But Seattle was in a lot of games that are close, or that they're being kind of that they're ahead by a lot. Like they're in a lot of gunslinging games.
Right.
So think about this though, Sean. Who did we play in those middle weeks after we lost the first game against
with Dallas, Cincinnati?
We played Dallas. We played Cincinnati twice. And we've already discussed it. Joe Burrow threw almost a season's worth of yards against us. He's thrown for like 800 yards on us. He had 340 yards, and then he had 400 and some change, respectively, in the first game and the second game. Then we played Philip Old Man Rivers, and we played against Dak Prescott. So in those games, Dak didn't go berserk on us. I thought he was.
Yes, he did.
He did. Yards. He almost 400 yards.
He threw for 500.
That's
almost 500.
That's 1,500 yards in 2 guys. So Old Man Rivers didn't do that. Lamar Jackson, who don't throw that much, didn't do that.
He didn't throw that much. And Big Ben didn't have a lot of passing yards.
And Ben didn't have no super great game. So because he didn't need to. I mean, hell, the game was over with after the second drive.
Right.
Once we threw the pick 6. So again, this is why the numbers don't speak to what actually happens in the games unless you watch the games and figure the games out.
It just seemed like that we were giving up.
Stuff that I'm just saying is because I watched the game.
It just seemed like that the way that it felt that we were giving up way more yards than.
But we are, Sean. We gave up 1,500 yards to 2 people. That is a lot of freaking yards.
No, it is. But I'm talking about even in the games against Indianapolis and
because we give them up when we don't need to give them up. Like in our minds, we like.
I'm just saying it felt like we were still giving up a bunch, even to.
We still are. Now, when you look at the numbers, you might look at the numbers like, oh, that ain't that bad. But remember the games. When you give up 800 yards to one person in 2 games, that's 400 yards a game. And you gave up almost 500 yards to another guy. That's almost 2,000 yards to 2 people. There you go. That's all you ever need to hear about what the hell we do defensively. And those ain't 2 like weird ass games. No, those are 2 games that actually encompass who we are defensively. That's who we are. We stink in the defensive backfield. Anybody who says our defensive this is why I said on that post I put on Facebook about us inquiring about Marvin Jones, I think we're just kicking the tires on that, to be honest. I think Marvin
Has
Jones
he even played this year? I haven't heard his name at all.
I don't know that he has or hasn't. I haven't watched. Listen, I watch enough bad football being a Cleveland Browns fan. Um, I don't want to watch another bad team, which is the Detroit Lions. They're awful in terms of how they've been playing it recently, and I don't know that they're going to make the playoffs. At least the Browns have a shot at the playoffs. However, I think they're just kicking the tires on this guy. I don't think that they're trying to acquire him. I don't think they're trying to give up anything to get him. I do think we need another wide receiver, only because even with Kadero Hodge coming back, it still only gives us 4 guys.
Right.
What if somebody gets hurt after the trade deadline? Like OBJ's not coming back, so I think we might need to look, and I think they're doing their due diligence. I know you didn't feel like it was a great fit, but my thinking is if he's available and you can get him for almost nothing, take it. And I'm gonna tell you another area that we don't play chess in the right kind of way as a team, the Browns. You know, sometimes we need to just sometimes get people because we don't want the Steelers or the Ravens to get them. Because the Steelers and the Ravens are always there at trade deadline. They are, especially the Ravens. And sometimes we might need to just say, you know what, man, I'll trade to get that guy. I'll give up a 4th round pick to get this dude just to keep these some bitches away from him and put ourselves in a higher spot. You know what I mean? Give us the edge. Like, we don't play that game, and I think we need to start playing that game. These dudes just got Yannick Ngakoue. They don't play well against the run. Guess what they about to do?
Right.
But play better against the run. Like, you have to start. Not saying that we needed to have gone out and got Yannick Ngakoue, but yes, the hell we did, because we don't have no linebackers. And I know he plays on the end, but I'll guarantee you that guy can play outside linebacker, because that's what he's gonna play there, because they play 3-4.
Hell, anybody can play outside linebacker better than the ones we got right now. At this point, although, you know, like Malcolm Smith has shown some flashes. B.J. Goodson has actually played okay.
Good. They played solid, but they ain't played enough. Nobody, listen, there is nobody going home with homework on B.J. Goodson on the Raiders team. Nobody on the Raiders team is going home with homework on B.J. Goodson. They're not.
Not at all.
And that's not a knock on B.J. Goodson. B.J. got to be the type of player that he can be, but ain't nobody thinking about that dude.
Right.
Nobody. And you know, and look, every time that our linebackers make a play, I go reach for my notepad like this. Linebackers did something today. Because I got to bring that up in the show.
And you know what? Somebody had brought up, I think it was Garrett Bush on 92.3. I think he said the Browns have never had a Ray Lewis type linebacker.
No, we could have. We could have a bunch of times, but we didn't. Hell, we could have had a Ray Lewis type of Ray Lewis if the team would have stayed here.
Yeah, exactly.
But
that's a whole other different story, right? Don't bring up that scar. But we've never had, since like the 80s, we haven't had any impactful.
Well, we could have had, what's the kid's name that went to Carolina? That went to Penn, Kuechly. We could have had Luke Kuechly. Honestly, we could have had, damn it, what's the USC linebacker?
A bunch of guys we passed up.
The USC linebackers, they had 3 linebackers that year.
You talking about Ray Maluga? He ended up busting out. He didn't pan out.
But I'll tell you what, he was more hurt than he was bad. If he could have stayed healthy, because when he was healthy, because he was a problem. He was in Cincinnati. He was a problem.
He was also an alcoholic.
Listen, you think it's stop it. Let's cut it out. There's a bunch of
people. I'm just saying
listen, one of the greatest players that have ever put on a helmet and pads.
Don't bring him up, because that's a whole different ball game.
Lawrence Taylor.
That's different though.
It's not. You know why? You know the only reason that is different. The only reason that is different is because it didn't affect his play on the field.
Yeah, because he's a generational talent.
But
He
he
changed the
wasn't.
whole
Listen,
linebacking
he
position.
was a good linebacker. He was a very good linebacker before he got all hopped up on that narcotic. Now, once he got hopped up on that narcotic and none of that pain and none of them hits was bothering him.
Oh
Come
man.
on, dog. And y'all mad at Barry Bonds. Listen, and I love Lawrence Taylor, but y'all mad at Barry Bonds for using the steroid, but that steroid don't do nothing for his hand-eye coordination. However, this dude takes a drug that pretty much numbs him up to any effects of whatever anybody's doing to him, and then he can destroy the quarterback.
Man, the documentaries on Lawrence Taylor are excellent, man. It's such good material. Because when you watch them, because they always painting out LT as this bad guy. And
no,
he really wasn't.
He's not a bad guy. He was never a bad guy. He was just hopped up on too many drugs. But the way he played the game. I don't have any idea how he played the game so good, being that hopped up at times. I have no idea how he played the game that good. Now, he wouldn't have been able to play that way, during this era, because he would have been kicked out of every game after the first or second tackle. But he was in the right era in the 80s, in the mid 80s to early 90s. And he was incredible. I feel like I grew up in the greatest era of sports, period. I know other people would argue that. I'm sure other people would argue it, and I couldn't argue back because I wasn't
the same way. I feel the same way. Greatest era in sports and hip hop. That's another conversation.
Hip hop ain't even a question. That ain't even a question. It's not even a music, period. Not just hip hop, music, period. I don't know that there was better music when we were, from the time that we were kids to the mid 90s to 2000s.
Well, music changed.
Music
the 70s soul era was great, man. I think that might have been better than any.
Bro, I'm not disputing that either, because I think that what our music did was bring that back, because we sampled so much stuff.
It did bring it back. Yeah.
And it also got us into certain jazz songs that I would have never known, some of the jazz stuff that I listen to now. I would have never known.
Absolutely right. I mean, it was funny because I'd be in my room listening to, Public Enemy, whatever, LL, and my father come into the room. He'd be like, man, ain't nothing but James Brown. I'm like, that's Chuck D. I ain't no James Brown. And then we'd be in the back of that car listening to WJMO. And sure enough, a James Brown record or Ohio Players record would come on.
Yep.
Like,
you hear that riff, and you like, what?
Right. And then that made me go listen to my mom's. Got a bunch of 45s and 33s.
Exactly.
I go pull them out, and that's how I got, hooked on to that music.
Exactly.
But all right, man. So are we done with the Browns? Got anything else that you wanted to add?
We're done with the Browns. And listen, this is why we don't have no call-in show, because I would have to cuss people out. We would never get through our entire show if we had a call-in show.
No, not at all.
So let's skip past the Browns. We've had that discussion. I think I've got enough off my chest, and let's move into Ohio State this week. My guys showed up last week, beat the brakes off of Nebraska. It took a little bit, and we talked about that on Sunday. But this week we're going into one of the places that I absolutely hate going into. I can't stand it. This game I hate every single solitary other season, when we have to go into Happy Valley, into Beaver Stadium, and play against the Penn State Nittany Lions and nowhere, Pennsylvania, because
I still don't know where Happy Valley. Like,
listen,
where exactly is that in Pennsylvania?
Did you hear what I just said? It's in the middle of nowhere. There's a mountain, and then there's mountains around that mountain,
and a stadium.
There's this stadium of the Beaver Stadium in Pennsylvania in Happy Valley. Right now, as of today, earlier today, we're 12-point. Penn State is 12-point dogs,
Really?
which is quite weird for this game. It's kind of weird for this game, but I think it has a lot to do with I don't know how many people will be in the stands, so it's
Right.
not going to be quite the same. And here's why I hate this game, people. If you guys don't know, we've played Penn State and Penn State a number every other year. We go to Penn State, and usually it's an 8 o'clock game. It's usually on ABC, and there's either a whiteout or a blackout. And in every one of those stupid freaking games, we have the hardest time possible, no matter how great our team is, no matter how bad our team is, no matter how good their team is, no matter how bad their team is. It's one of the hardest games to get out of with a W for us. And they've played us so close. And if you don't think I'm telling you the truth, the last 3 games that we've played against this team in that stupid stadium during a blackout or a whiteout have been decided by a complete total of 11 points.
Wow.
I hate going to Happy Valley. I hate it, Sean.
I hate it too. It's one of the most intimidating places to play in college football. Period.
So. I think so.
And we've had some of our most heartbreaking losses. We'll be on a roll.
Yep.
Here you come. It'll be about week 9, week
it's
10.
Always, yep. It's always
late
right
in the
before,
season. We rank number 1, number 2.
Yep.
Go in there and we'll lose on some fluky stuff like a late turnover or something like that, man.
A block stupid field goal, and they return it for the stupid 2. Man, listen, I still ain't forgot that one.
Right. And that crowd gets to going crazy. And I'm just like, man, it never fails. Now, a couple of times, but it feels good going there and get a victory, though. When you go in there and get one and shut that crowd up.
Look, I always feel like if we can go in there and get that win, that says something about our ability to, potentially win, bigger and better games
right
forward. I think it's a good test, but this is going to be different because it's nobody. I don't know what the capacity will be. I didn't look that up.
I don't think much. Pennsylvania just started allowing fans. So I think the Steelers and the Eagles had like 1,200. So I don't expect many fans there at all. Matter of fact, I don't even think it's a night game, is it?
7:30.
It's a 7:30 game. Okay, it's a night game. One guy we had to look out for, because I did watch their game last week against Indiana. This kid Shaka Tony, defensive end.
Yeah, man. What?
The number 18.
What?
Now he literally at one point in time destroyed 3 straight plays late in the game, which I thought were going to be, game over. What he did in that fourth quarter, but Penn State had a couple of coaching gaffes in that game and let Indiana come back and win that game in overtime. But he's definitely one to look out for. Offensively, I've never really been scared of Penn State offensively, no matter who they've had, no matter what year. Looking at the quarterback here, Clifford, he had a pretty decent game, but he threw 2 interceptions. He had 2 turnovers. Rushing wise, he was a leading rusher last week for Penn State too. So I think with the athletes we have on defense, we should be able to contain Penn State. What do you think, man?
Well, I mean,
what are you looking for?
Just kind of piggybacking on what you just said, or at least answering the question that you just asked. My hope is that this week, defensively, last week we didn't play bad, but I think, that lack of reps and that lack of speed, seeing an actual game speed, played against us early on. And we were able to kind of pick it up later. So I'm expecting to see us pick it up a little bit earlier this time, if that makes sense. Like I expect to see us make plays a little earlier now because we've gotten those reps out of the way.
Right.
We've gotten those opportunities of trying to figure out and see actual game speed. You can't, for those of you who don't know, you really can't recoup or recreate game speed in practice. You try as much as you can, but you really can't. So you go to other people's, you play against other teams, and these guys are faster than what you thought, because in game speed, it's different. Like those plays, these guys, if you play in any sports, the coaches slow down certain plays because they want to show you certain things that happen. So my hope is that on the field, what I see on the field from our defense, I'm not that concerned with their offense either. But I'm hoping that on the field defensively, we're capable of keeping up with these guys. We've gotten a game under our belt. This is a tough game to come out and it be your second game. Like there's no, usually for the Big Ten games, we have 2 or 3 games that you can just get your feet wet, wet your beak a little bit and get into these games, and you ease into them. So you ease in with an Indiana, and that's, or an Illinois, and that's okay. That's good enough. That's not what's happening this season. We're kind of, listen, we done jumped into the 4 feet right now. Like we ain't deep into it, but we done jumped into the 4 feet. Like the water right here on us. You have to show up and play this game. You have to play well. I expect to see a big game out of Chris Olave. I expect to see, because I expect Chris to just impose his will on the offense, on the offensive side. I expect our quarterback to show up as well. He had such a good game last week, and he really wasn't in a full rhythm.
Right.
He was kind of just, again, because the offense is a lot like the defense. You can't recreate that defense's speed as you're playing until you play it. But he played well. Justin played solid last week. He wasn't anything to write home about. But I think our offense was Justin heavy last week. So
I remember you saying that.
I think this week, yeah, I do. I think it was though. And I think that this week we have to allow Trey Sermon, and Master Teague to run the ball, and it just be them running the ball. I don't want to, and it's not to say that I don't want to see Justin run. It's not. I'm not saying that. I don't want him to be the have the same amount of character.
Just have him run in spots when it's necessary.
Yeah,
I get exactly what you're saying.
That's my thing, and I think you need to let Wilson and Olave and this young kid, and Jigba, I think his name is. I can't pronounce it. I'm trying to pronounce it right, but number 11 for Ohio State. Right. Listen, what I saw in that cat last week in one catch lets me know how special this kid can be.
Yeah, that's one of the best catches I've ever seen in college football.
Ever,
and that's
a
lot. There's been some great catches, but that was one of the best. Just to have the awareness to still get that 1 foot in, man, that was incredible. And concentrate on catching.
Tiptoe the line, never juggle the ball, and drag that foot all at the same time. Man, listen, that tells me a lot about that kid and his ability. So watch out for those guys. I think offensively we should be okay, but we have to put plays together. We cannot have a lot of 3-and-outs. Give that team the motivation and the thought that they can play with us. And another piggyback that I got from you, you got to watch out for that Shaka Tony dude. He wasn't just disrupting what Indiana was doing. This dude was disrupting everything. Because there was times when he didn't make a play, but I was like, they go 18 again. Who is that? It made me, because Penn State don't have no names on the back of their jersey.
Right.
I literally Googled who this dude was. That's how good he was playing last week. That dude, I think he had 7 tackles and 2 sacks, but he actually caused more tackles and sacks.
Right, exactly, man. He was just blowing up the whole line. He was blowing up the whole left side of Indiana's offensive line like they weren't even there, man. And we do have to be careful, because this is really the way this season is. This is
Trap.
Penn State's like bowl game.
This is a
Right.
trap game, dog.
Because if they lose this game, their season is over with.
Trap
So
game. This is
yeah.
a trap game for us.
Yep.
And it's a classic trap game. When you play a team, here's what trap games mean for folks who might just be tuning in and just want to hear people talk. A trap game is a game in which a team should probably win on paper per se, and maybe even win on the field. But they go into these games assuming that win is a simple win, an easy win, and the next thing they know, they're in a dogfight and damn near lose or just completely lose the game. So I think this is one of those games for my Buckeyes. As you see, I'm repping. This is from our 2017, 2016 champion? No, 2015 championship. That's when that was.
Yep.
2015.
That was the last one.
As you can see, the the whole championship trophy right there. So the Buckeyes have an opportunity to win this game, and I think they will. They're favored by 12. I don't necessarily see it at 12. I see it probably at 9-ish. Just because it's that game. It's this kind of game.
Right.
And we haven't had other games to filter through what might be wrong or who might fit better here and there. So I'm gonna equate all of that stuff to say I'm looking at probably like a 9-point game, say like a 30-21 type of game.
I was about to go the same way. I'm like 31-23. Ohio State. I think we'll pull it out. I think it'll be tight most of the way through the first half. And I think we'll do enough to pull away at the end. So you got 30-21. I got 31-23 Ohio State over the Penn State Nittany Lion. What the hell is a Nittany Lion anyway?
I don't know the difference between a Nittany lion and a mountain lion or a puma or a regular lion. Not 100%.
Right. College has the craziest, when it comes to their nicknames and stuff, they always have some crazy history behind their name.
Yeah, it's usually something crazy. I know a few of them have been built off of things that happened in that territory when they were becoming states. I forget which team. I think it's Missouri and Iowa. Like one of their names came from what they called them at that time in that territory. Now I forget the teams, but I was watching this thing called I'm a nerd, so I watched this thing called the shapes of the states, and in those
like how the states got their shapes.
Yeah. How the shapes got their states. How the states got their shapes. So in that's where I saw that. So it's kind of crazy, even Ohio State Michigan rivalry was discussed in that. Like our rivalry started with this issue over Toledo. Who gives a damn about
Toledo? You can have Toledo, right? Exactly. Y'all can have them.
But it was only about the port on the water. But Ohio is almost completely and totally on the water in the northern border, and actually on the southern border too. But I digress.
So a Nittany Lion is, like you said, it's a mountain lion, and it's named after there is a Mount Nittany in that area, so that's where they get the term the Nittany.
Man, whatever. It's the same type of dumb lion.
With that raggedy cut. Now their mascot probably has the raggediest costume. It's just like just a bad beat up ratty rug, don't it? It's awful. Brutus is clean. Brutus is well clean cut.
Brutus is
good.
I think Brutus might be the most recognizable mascot in America.
Well, you remember when they used to have the Capital One mascot thing? Yep. You could vote on the bet. They took Brutus off of there.
They took him out
because Ohio State fans was pretty much packing the votes.
But it was the truth. We were the most recognizable. Everybody knows Brutus when they see him. Whether they love us or hate us, when they see Brutus, They know exactly who the hell that is and where he's from. You know, and I watched this whole thing about the evolution of Brutus. I can't even believe Brutus looked as tacky as he used to look. He used to look tacky back in the 80s.
I think every mascot was tacky back then, man.
Tacky as hell.
Well, Penn State's Lion, whatever his name is, he's still tacky.
Tacky as hell. Tacky as hell.
Dude, he's like a bad rug, man.
He's awful. Listen, he's awful. He looks worse than Jopa's rug that he had on his head, because you know that was a rug all
Right,
day.
exactly. All
That
day
shit was
long.
awful.
All right, so
let's move forward. We've gone through the Browns. We've gone through our Buckeyes. Let's talk a little bit off of our favorite teams and just get into the World Series real quick. So as everybody probably knows by now, the Los Angeles Dodgers won the World Series. I picked the Dodgers to win. I was right again. Sean was wrong. I'm not surprised.
I had no idea that their manager was such an idiot.
Look, I'll
had
be
no
honest with you.
idea that Kevin Cash was that dumb.
I'll be honest with you.
You know,
I don't
that's
think
not my fault.
anybody on earth thought this dude was that damn dumb. But saying that, as we're gonna kind of we're not gonna dissect the entire series. We have to, however, if you guys saw the game or didn't see the game, we have to dissect Game 6, because Game 6, honestly, as a guy who called for the Dodgers to win, we should be talking Game 7 tonight. So that's how crazy Game 6 was. So last night was Game 6. The Dodgers apparently had won Game 5. It wasn't like a runaway game, but it was a good game, 4-2. They're up 3-2. So tonight or last night was the potential for them to win the series. We had Gonsolin and Snell going, which was the exact same Game 2 matchup. The same two guys went in Game 2, and Snell played pretty good that game. Gonsolin wasn't awful, but he wasn't great. Snell was awesome, and Gonsolin actually pitched really well last night. They both pitched really well. The only problem for Gonsolin is this dude decided to throw a bad pitch, one bad pitch to the wrong guy. Randy, hey, Arena. All right? And he drove that joint completely out of the building. And that gave the Rays a first inning lead of 1-0 in the top of the first. All that did, I don't know how much confidence Blake Snell had going into the game, but that one run gave this dude all of what he needed.
Right, because Blake Snell was flat out dealing.
Man, God dang.
I mean, dealing, and that the
riverboat. He was riverboat.
They could get no wood on the ball at all. That's how great he was pitching, just throwing straight smoke, and the Dodgers could do nothing with him.
That dude was riverboat dealing, man. He was.
But they had one hit through 6, something
one
like that.
Hit. He was one hitting these guys through 6 innings. One hitting through 6 innings. Like going through innings with like 12 pitches. Anybody who actually watches baseball, if you get through an inning with 12 pitches, you're like, God dang.
Right.
Like that's.
I mean, he was just mowing them down.
You dealing, my G. So Blake Snell, just to give you a little bit of background, he won the Cy Young in 2018. So it's not like he's like this is some strange occurrence. The dude is used to being a really good pitcher. He just hasn't pitched that great in the last, say, season or so. He's had his ups and his downs. He hasn't necessarily been the Blake Snell that won the Cy Young. But let me tell you something. Last night, That dude was the Blake Snell that could have won every Cy Young that's ever been handed out.
Exactly.
I mean, that dude was, and I'm watching the game. I ain't talking about somebody who, who, just kind of looked at a clip or hot. I was watching the game and I'm sitting there like, God dang. Every batter went up there with the same approach. And I don't care what their approach was. You not finna hit this ball. John Smoltz was sitting in the booth talking about this dude, and like every other pitch, this dude was like, that was an awesome pitch. John Smoltz, Hall of Famer.
Yeah, one of the greatest pitchers of all
One of
time.
the greatest pitchers I've ever seen. Definitely one of the greatest pitchers in our generation, correct?
Yeah.
John Smoltz was in the booth like, oh my gosh. Like, I don't even want to talk right now. Be quiet. Let's let this dude pitch. And he would pitch. And then he would give us comment in between the pitches. That's how good this dude. This is another reason why, baseball is about being superstitious. He didn't want to he didn't want to talk while this dude was pitching.
Right. The most superstitious sport on
it's
the planet.
It's the most, bro. But this cat was Roger Clemens, Randy Johnson dealing, like just witchcraft. But here's the crazier part. It really wasn't witchcraft. He was just placing the hell out of those pitches. Just placing the hell out of them. Just outthinking, out-chessing every hitter that he was facing. So here we go into the 6th inning. Again, top of the 6th. He has not had a problem at all. At all. He's going into the 8, 9, and 1 hitters. He gets the 8 hitter out. In comes Barnes, the catcher. He hits a kind of a bloop single into center field. Gets on base. I mean to tell you, that goddamn ball hadn't hit the ground before.
Right, and Kevin Cash is on his way out the dugout.
Pulled his mask up over his face and just took off. That dude went out there like he ran out to that damn mound like Usain Bolt. Like,
right. You couldn't get him out of there fast enough.
Man. And I know that Tampa has had a very good bullpen. I don't know if he was trying to rest Snell for his next start. But now his next start is sometime next season.
Right, his next start would have been next season anyway.
So
it's all or nothing.
So this is the point. Before I go any further, this is the point I have to stop my explaining how the game goes. And I got to get into this guy, Kevin Cash. He's notoriously had a quick hook for his guys because he loves his bullpen so much. Sean, tell me something, bro. And please, if you can, help me understand some stuff because I know that I don't always know everything. Was it so important to get to this damn bullpen?
No, he panicked. And well, I won't say that he panicked, but that's what they've been doing all season. And he's trying to go with the formula and what the analytics say when it's time to go to the bullpen instead of going with his gut instinct. That guy was pitching at the point where he wasn't going to lose that game, because he had the Dodgers hitters completely baffled. And as soon as he pulled him out that game, I said, "That's it. Dodgers are world champions." And what happened?
It was poof.
Everything fell apart, literally.
Everything was poof. You're right. Yep.
Done.
Yep. I mean.
And I think it deflated the Rays too.
And that's, you must have known where I was getting ready to go, because I was getting ready to ask you. I was just getting ready to ask you because I got it written down right here. So, do you think that it elevated the Dodgers more or deflated the Rays more? I think it deflated the Rays. Yeah, I think it deflated the Rays more. Bro, what are you doing? Here's the problem, and I put Kevin Cash. Now, Kevin Cash, I hand Kevin Cash. I'm gonna grab my water. This ain't the trophy. I'm gonna make the trophy up. but I hand Kevin Cash the Tito Award for acting like the postseason is the regular season. You win a Tito, homie. Stop thinking that the postseason is the regular season. It's a whole other animal. Terry Francona is notorious. And guess who else is notorious for it now? Sandy Alomar. You
Yep.
do what I've always done. How many didn't we just get into an irritation argument about 2 weeks ago about what it's always like when it comes from a coach?
Sure did.
Stop it. Stop it. You have to know when it's the same, and you also have to know when to turn it off. That will irritate me until the end. And I don't like Tampa Bay per se. They're not my favorite team for sure. I don't like the Dodgers per se. Like, I'm not against them, but I'm speaking as a fan of the game. Bro, your guy was coming up on the top of that lineup. This is how goofy. I'm not going to say dumb. I'm not going to call this guy dumb. I didn't watch him enough this year to call him dumb, but he also didn't end up in the World Series because he's dumb. I'm just going to say at some point you got to throw conventional wisdom out of the window and go
But
with
you can't say it was a dumb move. You can say that one individual
move. I think it was a dumb move. I don't think he's dumb. I just think that was a dumb move.
Right.
That's something he's going to have to live with until he wins a World Series. And
Yep.
that's what he's always going to be remembered for. It's like Bill Buckner. Bill Buckner was a Golden Glove first baseman. But what is he most remembered for? Booting the hell out of that ball against the Mets. That's it. So it's the same thing with this guy. You're the guy that made the pull. This guy had Snell had the record. They said no other pitcher. I put it up on our page. The only other pitcher that threw that was striking people out the way he was striking people out with the on-base percentage that he had, it was the highest in World Series history. And you took him out because he gave up his second hit in the 6th inning?
Right.
Not in the same inning.
Well,
in the 6th inning.
Either John Smoltz or Buck made the comment. The difference between baseball then and now is that he said managers look for a reason to pull their pitcher out of the game instead of finding a reason to leave them in the game.
He absolutely did say that. Like now, they're not looking for reasons to leave you in. They're looking for reasons to pull you out.
Right. Even the Dodgers were doing questionable things too. They just got away with it because they were like they used like 4 pitchers in the first. It was like 5 innings or something like that. They were pulling them out left and right, and they weren't giving up hits.
But Gonsolin wasn't playing bad. He wasn't playing bad. You're right. You're absolutely right. Gonsolin wasn't playing bad. Then they kind of, after they got through 2 other pitchers, they finally found like a groove, and then they pulled that dude quick once they got the lead and went to Urias, or Urias rather. I think that's how you pronounce it, Urias. And he pitched out the rest, like I think from 7, 8, 9.
Right.
But here's just a few stats on Snell. Like I'm baffled by this. I'm not a baseball manager. I've never managed a baseball game. I've never coached a baseball game. So again, I'm not attempting to say that I'm smarter than this guy, but there's certain things that I do know that you just have to roll with at certain times. The top of the lineup was coming up when they pulled Snell out of the game. The top 4, which is generally the meat of your lineup. It used to be a time when the meat of your lineup was 2 through 5. Now the meat of the lineup is kind of 1 through 4. It's kind of shifting a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So Mookie Betts was coming up at the top. He's the top guy. Hold on a second. I wrote these guys down in one of my notes. So you had Mookie Betts. You had Craig Sager. Seager, rather. You also had Craig. I'm thinking of
Corey
the
Seager.
announcer. Yeah, Corey Seager, not Craig. You had Justin Turner, and then you had Muncy coming up in the fourth spot. This dude, Snell, had these guys hitting 0 for 8. Prior to that hit, he gave up to Barnes. Actually, the hit because he gave up the hit to Mookie. No, he pulled him after that. So that hit he gave up to Barnes, rather. The top of the lineup was hitting 0 for 8 with 7 strikeouts. You do realize this dude had 9 strikeouts total. And he got 7 of them in the top 4 in the meat of the lineup. Why are you pulling? Let him see Mookie and just see what happens. And just see. Just see. And if he gives up another hit, then you pull the guy out. But sometimes and Sean, correct me if I'm wrong, if you think something opposite of what I'm getting ready to say. Baseball is probably one of the few sports where, well, football can be that way too. But doing so much not to lose instead of just playing to win works against you.
Oh, always. It always does. I don't know. Like I said, that was just a very baffling move at that time. You got to just, I know analytics have been part of sports for a long time, and it's definitely a needed part of sports. But at some point, you got to use your instincts as manager, head coach, whatever, to know that.
Like Charlie, my gut. What was that? Charlie said that, and so did Butch.
Butch Davis is about Kelly.
My gut.
Put Kelly in there. I knew, man. I knew we was about to go 3-13 as soon as he did that. But that's another story.
It's just a gut feeling.
But that was just a bad move. And then what happened? It was an error after that.
Well, here's what happened. After that, so we'll go into the rest of what happened. So after Barnes, the catcher, the ninth hitter, the ninth slot hitter, he got the hit on Blake Snell. They pulled Blake Snell. They bring in another pitcher. The next guy comes up. The next pitcher comes in, rather. He's going against Mookie Betts, who I've told you was not necessarily having no great series average-wise. He was just doing everything else. All he did was come in and get another hit, a double, by the way. Got now you got second and third when you didn't have anybody on base basically most of the night. I think Snell had a walk that ended up on second or something like that, and they ended up getting guys out. I think that was like in the third inning or something like that. That was the only threat. So now you got guys second and third in flat out scoring position, not just scoring to tie, but the go-ahead run is on second base. And now you have Corey Seager coming. You know what I mean? Like that's a little bit of pressure, homie. And then that's when they threw the wild pitch.
Yep, threw the wild pitch.
Barnes came in to score. So now we're tied 1-1 with Mookie Betts, one of the most dangerous base runners in baseball right now, especially in the postseason, on third base. And I think at that time they had taken Justin Turner out. As we found out later, I think when they found out he tested positive, I don't know what the hell
in the middle of the game, right?
I don't know what the hell kind of testing that tells you during the game, not when you actually test that you might have COVID. But however that happened, we find out later that Justin Turner ended up getting pulled out because of COVID. So I forget the other kid's name, Garcia. It's not Garcia, but I forget his name. Hernandez, I think his name is. He comes up, boom, he gets a hit, or he makes contact. And because there was a hesitation at first base, it was an infield hit. It bounces right down to first base, and there was just a little bit of hesitation. Mookie Betts just took off. He just took off and ended up scoring the go-ahead. And actually, that ended up being the winning run.
Yep.
because that made it 2-1, and the Rays never, like, literally that happening after taking that guy out of the game, that killed every bit of spirit that team had. You know, last couple years ago when the Indians were there, because we talked about this with the NBA Lakers and MLB Dodgers playing and winning a championship in the same year. The Indians were there along with the Cavs in 2016. We had a rain delay, a God, something that you can't prevent kind of thing that happened that
Killed our momentum.
kind of killed what
It was
we
only
had.
a 15-minute rain delay at that.
But to have a guy on your team, a guy that supposedly leads your team, be the killer of that, I think that's worse. I think that's worse. And I don't know how you develop like that trust, like as a player. I don't know that I trust this guy no more. And now as a manager, does he start to second guess himself going into next season, how he pitch or how he coaches and manages?
Yeah.
You know, does he
That's going to follow
allow
him
his
for a
team?
while. And you can tell that Snell was absolutely pissed when he pulled him out
That
that
dude
game.
was, listen, if he could have, he did everything. I give him some credit because I think he did everything in his power not to try to show his full emotion.
Mm-hmm.
But you can see it in his face. You can see it in his eyes. You can see it in his body language when he was standing over there. You can see it in everybody. Like, it legitimately sapped. And then, of course, when Mookie came up in the top or bottom of the eighth and hit that home
bomb.
run,
Yeah, that was it.
it was like it was game, like game. Like, ain't even nothing we gonna do to stop these dudes.
Right.
And that was initiated by your manager. The
Tito Francona
Award for, I didn't realize we could lose the entire series playing like it was a regular season.
Exactly. From one boneheaded move.
All
right, man. Well, we want to go ahead and congratulate the Los Angeles Dodgers, 2020 Major League Baseball champions. Now we'll see what goes forward with baseball. It's like, do they come back and try to have, a full schedule, or they're going to allow fans in the stands next year?
That was at least only, real quick, I'm sorry to cut you off, Sean.
No.
But that was the only game, or excuse me, the World Series was the only series that ever had fans at it, actual fans at it, all season long. That's what they said during the broadcast last night. It actually surprised me because I thought.
Well, they had some doing the NLCS. Whatever the games in the bubble in Texas were.
Okay, well, that's what it was. That's what they said.
They had fans.
In that stadium was the only place that actually had. I think the Indians had fans the first game.
No, none.
I feel like they did, but maybe
they didn't. No, it was that stadium was empty the whole time.
We wouldn't look. It looked like it was. Look, it looked like it was a regular season game to me.
Right. Right. That's I'm not going into that, man. But and then baseball, actually, unlike the NBA, baseball was able to end on schedule, so they have a few months where they can actually plan out their course of action going into next season. And will they keep some of the changes? Will they keep that playoff format? Will they keep the playoff format?
I told you that. I like it too. I love that best of three. That best of three was awesome.
Also, they had some other changes too, where extra innings where you had the guy start on second. They may keep that. I was against that going into the season, but once I saw how it played out, it actually made things a lot more interesting. So let's see if they keep that.
Because now you got your pitcher that you got to figure it out. You playing from the stretch, bro. That changes. That changes a lot.
It changes everything. It changes the whole approach. So we'll see what happens with that. So I think next, man, we need to go ahead and do our NFL picks for next week. We need to review our picks from last week and then make our picks for next week.
We will get into those picks real quick. Where are they at?
The first game we had was the New York Football Giants against the Philadelphia Eagles. I picked Philly, and Philly won that game I actually saw one of the most boneheaded plays that you'll ever see in the history of NFL when Daniel Jones was running free and the invisible man on the turf
Listen to me,
tripped
man.
dude at about the 10-yard line.
The only
But that's
thing,
typical Giants.
the only thing that was missing from that particular play was Yakety Sax playing in the background.
Right.
The Benny
The
Hill.
Benny Hill music.
Like that's the only thing. Like I
Right.
could not believe that dude just fell down for no reason, man. I was
But see,
lost
but
on that
that's
one.
what happens, man, when you're just that bad.
When
That
you
kind of stuff
bad,
used to happen to us. That's what used to
the
happen to
butt
us
look,
all the
the
time.
butt fumble, the butt. You know how bad the Jets were that year, and the butt fumble happened. You
Exactly.
can't. Those types of things don't happen when you're really really good. They only happen to exacerbate your badness. You're
Right.
awful.
And who did you pick that game?
I picked the Eagles
All right.
for that game, so we both came out with a dub on that one.
So then we had Pittsburgh and the Tennessee Titans. I actually went Tennessee. Pittsburgh won. Actually, that game got a lot closer than it was earlier because Pittsburgh was running away with that game and Tennessee made a run. What did you have?
I picked the Steelers.
Okay.
And
So we had the Bears and the Rams.
Yep, that's next.
So far, so you're 2-0 so far. I'm 1-1.
Right.
Bears and the Rams. I picked the Rams, and they pretty much blew out the Bears. So no problem. The Bears are probably the worst 5-2 team.
They are
in the NFL right now.
They are.
Then we had Seattle and Arizona in a wild game. And I fell asleep on that game at the end of the fourth
quarter. That game was crazy.
But Seattle has a crazy game every week, man. They're always on some type of drama.
They do.
DK Metcalf maybe had the best chase down in the history of the NFL.
Maybe ever.
Yeah. That was a crazy play. Saved it. Now he saved the pick six.
This dude ran this guy down for like 80 yards, dog. He ran this dude down 80 yards, man.
Right. Full sprint.
I picked
Seattle too, so I lost that one. And then Browns and Bagels, we both picked the Browns. So I ended up 3-2, which makes my record now 10-9. And that makes you should be 10-9 too, I think, right?
Yep. We both tied at 10-9.
So we're both 10-9.
4-1.
All right. All right. So what games are we picking?
So that was last week's picks, folks. As we move into this week's picks, we have the Indianapolis Colts, who just came off of a bye. They're 4-2. Their last game, they lost to our Cleveland Browns. They're going into Detroit to play the 3-3 Lions. What you got, John?
I'm going with the Colts because Lions ain't gonna win 2 games in a row. I already know that. I don't even know analysis to think about that game.
Yeah, I love his in-depth analysis.
The Lions ain't gonna win 2 games in a row.
That's my analysis. And listen, I can't even argue with that because I don't think they're gonna win 2 in a row either. I picked the Colts. I mean, the Lions played the Falcons last week. I don't need to say anything else beyond that, do I?
Exactly.
Matt Stafford is the epitome of mediocrity and inconsistency. So he played good last week. I doubt that he's going to do that 2 weeks in a row. So I agree.
Yeah, man. Matt Stafford throws for 4,000 meaningless yards every year.
Every single year.
The most meaningless 4,000 yards in the history of football.
And 38 touchdowns.
Right.
And he don't win but 6 games.
Right. Every year.
Crazy. That's crazy.
All right, what's next on the docket?
The next game is the Steelers, who are 6-0, going to Baltimore to play the Ravens at 5-1, who's coming off of a bye.
Okay. Well, short of a sinkhole opening up at MTNT Stadium and sucking them both to hell,
which is what we would both like to see.
Right, we both love to see that. I'm gonna go Baltimore. Pittsburgh's due for a clunker, so I'm going Ravens. It's going to be the typical bloodbath, that they have between those 2 teams. But
Yep.
Go on Ratbirds.
Yeah, I got the Ravens as well. I think the addition of what they don't do well is defend the run, which is surprising. You would think that the Ravens did well against that, but as I mentioned earlier in the show, Yannick Ngakoue is on the team now, and I think that if he plays, I'm not even 100% sure that he's going to play. That's just going to shore up their run defense. And if we see the Ben Roethlisberger that we saw, or even close to the Ben Roethlisberger that we saw in that game last week against the Titans, the dude that threw 3 picks, the Ravens are going to win that game. So I picked the Ravens as well,
All right.
especially with them being at home. All right, so the next game is the battle of first place in the NFC East. We have the Cowboys at 2-5 going into the Link in Philadelphia, 2-4-1. The Eagles are in first place, by the way.
Philly. One thing, we don't even know who's playing quarterback for Dallas.
I think it's the janitor.
I don't even know his damn name. It starts with a B.
Yeah, it's the janitor, dog. It's Tyrone.
He gave Tyrone a uniform.
It's Javier. It's Javier the janitor, dog.
I'm going with Philly because I don't think the Red Rifle will be ready this week because he looked like he was damn near dead after that hit against Washington.
I tell you what,
he got concussed.
That could have been one of the dirtiest plays I've seen in a long time.
Right.
That was pretty shitty on that guy. I can't remember who did it. Boston did it, and that was pretty shitty. You know, I'm not a Cowboys fan by any stretch of the imagination, but
you don't want to see anybody go out like that.
That was shitty.
So I love seeing the Cowboys implode, just simply because I don't like Jerry Jones.
Exactly.
So to see them have meltdowns and Jerry have a meltdown during his press conference or radio show every week.
Why does he have a radio show or a press conference?
Yeah, it's just enjoyable. So I'm going with Philly. Dallas will sink further into the abyss, and the fact that Dallas doesn't even have a chance to win that division is just an indictment on that.
The fact that there's a team that's 2-4-1 that's the first place in that
place, right,
tells you everything about that.
Philly is probably out of the bunch the best team, and they're inconsistent. They look good for a couple of drives, and they look like a college team at other times. So
it's hard to say that they look good last week, and they did look good last week comparatively to their other games. But
the Giants gave that game
away.
I knew the Giants was gonna find a way to get that game away. I just had that feeling.
Yeah.
I had that feeling.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, it's hard to say, oh, well, they played good last week, because and even though I went on this big rant about the Bengals, not necessarily being the greatest team ever, but we showed up. The Giants are a worse team than the Bengals are. Like, wholesale team. The entire team is worse than the damn Bengals. The Giants are awful. And they're coached bad. I don't know that the coach is the problem, though. I just think that their personnel is awful right now.
Right.
So, but it's hard to gauge how good Carson Wentz played last week based on what we saw in that game against the Giants. So now going against the Cowboys, he's got 2 weeks of almost scrimmaging. This is 2 scrimmage games almost.
Pretty much.
In which he can get himself together and put his team back in some level of respectability. I don't think they're going to win no Super Bowl. I don't think they're going to do nothing in the playoffs. Because apparently, if they stay in first place, they're going to go to the playoffs. But I just think that you want to at least be respectable on your way there. So I think this game will be another opportunity for them to figure that out. If they lose this game, I don't know what to say for anybody in that damn division. But exactly. I picked the Eagles. I picked the Eagles.
All right. So what's game number 4?
Game number 4 is the Saints, who are 4-2, going into Soldier Field to play the 5-2 Chicago Bears. What you got, bro?
That's a tough one. The Saints go. It's in Chicago.
It's in Chicago.
The Saints never play well outside on grass. Historically they never have. The Bears, despite their inept offense, they do have a pretty good defense. So I'm gonna go Chicago.
And I agree. The Saints tend to play poorly outside of the dome. They damn sure play poorly outside of home. However, after having watched that Monday night game, the Bears' offense is horrendous. And I don't know where the potential that they can be better is right now. I don't know where that's at. So
yeah, there's no confidence in Matt Nagy right now. It's a lot of infighting really between Nick Foles and Nagy, where Nick Foles is pretty much called out the coach and said those players are horrible.
And this is
saw was right, and pretty much all I saw Nick Foles overthrowing dudes by 25 yards.
Listen, they're not good.
So,
they're not good. Like that offense is not good. Kind of echoing some of the things that you just said. I thought that Nagy and Foles were cool. That was one of the reasons why he went to Chicago or didn't have an issue going to Chicago, restructured his deal to go, play there. And now he's there and he realizes that, it's almost like somebody invites you to a party. Your boy call you up. They're like, yo, man, you need to come to this party, man. There ain't nothing but hoes in here, man.
Right.
You get to the party and it's like skanks. Ain't no quality. It's like, first of all, the party is in Morris Black. And then, you like, wait a minute. Anybody who don't know, I know some people gonna be offended because I know some people who stay in Morris. But just saying, Morris Black ain't no place to play with. That's one of the rougher, tougher projects in Cleveland. You don't really want to be messing around there. So sorry for anybody who might be a little bit upset.
All right, and finally the Browns versus the Raiders. I'm going Browns and a tight one. I think I'm gonna say 31-28. That's my go-to score.
Wow, 31-28.
I'm going 31-28 Browns. I think it's gonna go back and forth. Because our defense can't stop anybody, man. So, and the Raiders have weapons. They got speed too.
Well,
a whole lot of speed.
They do got speed. They do have speed. Yep.
So I mean, on paper, I mean the Raiders have a pretty formidable offense. It's just defensively where they struggle. So, yeah, but I think we're gonna pull it out. I think we got a little momentum going. So I'm going 31-28.
I'm picking the Browns as I have all season. But I think it's going to be a bit closer. I got 27-24. I think our problem is going to be Waller, especially if he stays healthy throughout the game. Waller is going to – we don't have anybody that can cover that guy. I mean, most teams don't, and that's not even a knock on our team. Most teams don't have a guy that can cover that guy. That's how good he is. He's big. He can catch. He's athletic. He's fast. And that's always going to pose a problem for our type of team. We don't have anything up the middle. We don't have a good middle linebacker per se. We don't necessarily have any safeties. Ronnie Harrison, as decent as he plays, is a little guy. He ain't a Earl Turner, Earl Thomas rather, who's at least a almost 6 foot guy, 5'11", 6 foot guy with some size. Ronnie Harrison is a small guy. He's like my size, 5'10", 190 pounds, 200 pounds maybe. Man, what the hell are you gonna do against Waller once he brushes past you? Once he turns that shoulder, you know what I mean? So it's going to be hard for us to stop that guy. However, I think that because of the inconsistencies of their quarterback and of their offense, they don't, as good as they are on paper, they don't always play that great. Like David
That's true.
Carr, David Carr is David Carr, and he might even start out the game hot. I know the last time we played them, I was out in Vegas when they played them. They played them in Oakland,
We
and
got cheated.
we did get cheated that game. We absolutely got cheated. They stole a game from us, for sure. We had a first down on that 4th and 1, and they somehow figured that we didn't get it, or they somehow said we didn't get it, even after going to Secaucus. I'm just kind of like, fuck Secaucus at this point. But David Carr had a huge game that game. I think he threw for like 350 yards that game. It was kind of a wild back and forth type of game.
It was.
I might expect to see some of that from him on Sunday, but I still think the Browns are going to pull this thing out 27-24, because I think when the pressure is on Carr, I don't know that Carr can make the plays, and I expect a kind of a bigger game out of Myles Garrett. I mean, again, I'm expecting. Look, every week I'm standing in line with my singles in hand. I'm waiting on the script plug every week. I'm waiting on the script plug every week.
All right,
that's just me.
All right, folks. Well, there you have it. Unless you had anything else to add, RP.
I don't have anything. I think if I have anything, next time we convene on a Wednesday, we're definitely gonna have to, because you brought up something a little bit ago about the Major League Baseball's season and how they're gonna, come back together, even though they're kind of on their regular progression
cycle.
Cycle. That's what I was looking for. The regular cycle of how their season ends and going into the off season. Our other sports aren't necessarily that way right now. Not right now. Definitely not basketball. So we'll talk about that, because I actually put an article up that was detailing some of the things that they're talking about. Some of it is absolutely ridiculous. I don't know if you read it, but take a look at it. We're going to talk about that as well. But not on Sunday, because Sunday is going to be all about the Browns and how we work through these.
We kick the Raiders' ass pretty much.
Yeah. That's what we're hoping to talk about. So thank you guys for listening again. We got so many mediums that you can reach us on now. The podcast is being streamed on multiple podcasts, from Apple to iTunes to Spotify, Anchor. So any of your Google podcasts as well. So any of your podcasts that you might use, if you want to tune in to where we are, you guys can go to our Instagram page, 2 Guys and a Mic 216, and hit on our Linktree link, and it'll take you to every single solitary one of our podcasts, as well as our YouTube page. Go to it, subscribe, love us, like us, hate us. I don't care. Comment, do it all. We don't care. It just lets us know that you guys are listening and that you guys even care a little bit. We appreciate you guys. I love you guys. Sean, you can take it from here, bro.
All right, so that will wrap up another edition of 2 Guys and a Mic. This is our midweek edition, and we hope to see you guys on Sunday, hopefully after a Browns victory. So once again, thank you to everybody for their support, and you guys have a good rest of your week, and we'll see you on Sunday.
All right, homie. Peace out, man. Love you.
Love you too, man. Take it easy.